Welcome back to Method. I'm Kent Johns. Today on the show, we're joined by Darryl Stingley. If you somehow got to this video and you don't already know who Darryl is, he's one of the most well-known American parkour athletes. He's also part of Sqvadron and is most well-known for some of his videos and bar work such as 16 Bars and Bane. And today we're going to be talking a lot about Black Lives Matter and police brutality and the inequalities that are found in America. So without further ado, let's get into it. I feel like this year just can't stop escalating.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know that you have had a lot to say lately, obviously, as just like coming from like your background and whatnot, and like being a black athlete in the community who I feel like, you know, we're in a white dominated sport. And I feel like it's pretty easy for people in parkour sometimes. And I'm not saying that people are being like extremely ignorant in parkour. There's always going to be ignorant people, but I feel like people like parkour people a lot of times very often will just kind of be like, I don't really care about anything. I just want to jump, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just going to ignore everything that's going on in the world and just worry on jumping. Because I think parkour is like a form of escapism for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But the point I guess I'm making is that I think people will listen up more in the parkour community, at least from people in the community that they respect, like such as yourself. And so, yeah, I just wanted to have you to just kind of like chat about, you know, where you're at, what's going on in your head. You know, this isn't like suddenly a new issue, but it's just like something that's getting highlighted right now. And I just felt like I'd want to give you my platform basically to just kind of like talk about what's going on with you, and like, I don't know, just want to hear from you and your experience.
You know, greatly appreciated. I'm happy to be here. You wouldn't actually believe how many of these I do and this audio doesn't get recorded or something. So like, yeah. Dude, I've said things about this like over the past 4 years, like about this specific kind of like issue and how it pertains to me in parkour, and the audio is lost. Like,
yeah,
I don't know how.
Just like tons of like conversations with people over the years.
Yeah. I mean, and like some obviously way more of them in person than in this form. But a few in this form that I think like could have come out, you know. Yeah. Like, but didn't because the audio got lost.
Dude.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, you're right about like a lot of people and not only in our sport specifically, but like, you know, very much so in our sport, people like can kind of turn off to quite a lot of issues. And I mean, it seems like a lot of people in the community have been like pretty on to like the issues of like climate change and like health and like mental health and stuff like that. But it hasn't seemed as though like there has been very much like recognition of like the struggle that like minority peoples experience in at least in this country, but like, you know, I mean, it doesn't just happen here, but like in particular like the Black American struggle like here, and I feel like there's that disconnect where, you know, it's like people, I feel like a lot of people would think like, well, like what business is that of mine to care? You know what I mean? And like, that's not to say for everybody, obviously. But I have experienced that where like some people like, they will legitimately just say, well, I don't understand like that problem and I'll never understand that problem. And they just leave it at that. And it's like, okay, that's cause.
Like, therefore it's not their issue because like it doesn't relate to them.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it legit comes off. I mean, not even just how it comes off. These are like, I'm talking like fucking quoting people. I will never understand that issue. So what do you want me to do about it? And it's not like they're actually asking, what do I want them to do about it? It's just more like, you know, I don't think about that because I can't change it. So I don't do anything, you know?
Yeah.
kind of like a cause for inaction at that point in time. When people don't realize how much they could actually do to change it, and also how much that would benefit them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think
we're seeing a lot of that currently, where maybe people like didn't realize that they could actually do something about it, or just like hadn't given it enough thought to be like, oh yeah, actually, even though this isn't my issue or my battle, it like I could have something that, you know, I can provide to help, you know, make that just like just like add their voice or add their platform or add their, you know, action to just help push things forward.
Yeah. Often I just say like recognition of the issue is like, you know, like true recognition of the issue is a big part of like how you can help. You know what I mean? Like obviously just because you know what's going on, that doesn't change that it's happening. But I feel like it's really hard, and I can only speak about this from my own personal point of view, but it's really hard to see a problem and just be okay with that problem existing. You know what I mean? Like I don't have the issue of like being a woman in this sport or in this climate or culture, but like, I mean, I have sisters, you know what I mean? And like, you know, like I have my girlfriend and she's in this community, and it's just like I don't need to be her or them to want better for her or them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or at least just to like, even to have empathy for what they go through.
Exactly.
You won't be able to feel that, but you can understand that you don't know how to feel that. Yeah. You know, and that always is that's a good first step for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's like that's something that, more people could stand to do. And I think obviously more people are doing that now. But that always poses the question, you know, it's always the question from the people who are being affected by it. It's like, did it have to get to this point, like for you to think that you should listen a little bit more? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cause this isn't a situation of just like, you know, I was wronged or traumatized. This is a situation of like, people are just not here anymore. Like they were here one day and they're not here anymore, or in any form that we can understand. These people don't exist anymore. And, and like for them, it's completely over, you know? And if you think about it from that point of view, I always say this to people, like, is it going to take this type of thing happening to me to make you change? And like, are you really going to wait for that? Because, you know, contrary to what anybody might believe, like this is extremely possible for me, you know, like, I mean, yesterday I was out just, you know, filming at a school, and, you know, I can't go out to places like that by myself, because if I get caught by myself, I don't have any witnesses or anything. So like, you know, Mel and I are on this school campus, we're filming, like this is legitimate work we're doing, like actual, like for a company. And I just hear sirens, and like every time I hear sirens, I get fucking terrified, because I'm just like, somebody called the police, said that I'm breaking into a fucking school, or I don't know what, you know what I mean? So like, you know, my heart's racing, and it's like, is this going to be the day when it happens? You know what I mean? And yeah, I feel like, you know, more people are noticing now the issues, and like, I've gotten people that have told me exactly what I told you before, where they're like I could never understand that. Like those people who have been relatively inactive or thoughtless about the issue are now like reaching out and asking, like, and actually being apologetic too. And asking like, how do I move forward? Like, what do you think? Like, what, you know, like asking my opinion on it. And those are typically the people that I've said, like, do you really want to wait for this to happen to me for you to feel differently about it? You know what I mean? So I think we're it's a blessing and a curse. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I don't know how you think about it, but I guess my thought on that is that like better late than never.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. Like
you're right about that.
If as long as those people, it's not just like, oh, I feel bad and uncomfortable right now, and then in a little bit it's like, okay, now we're back to normal, so I'm not gonna like care anymore. Like if we just if we just cycle again, then that's not helpful. But if this is what causes people to start caring more, it's like it's something,
right?
That is a positive step. So yeah, and I think that it's important that we I don't know, I always think it's better to give people a little more benefit of the doubt. It's like, oh yeah, maybe people do want to change, and like, if people are coming and being like, oh, I'm actually sorry, like that I was ignorant about this in the past, and I want to be better.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably for the best to give those people a chance.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's like, I've been really, really like vocal about this. I mean, I've made a few posts about this specifically, where I'm like thanking the people that are, listening or asking questions. Mm-hmm. And I've had like I told you, I spent this morning like educating people. It's there are people who have their opinions about issues, and some of them are like really fucking good opinions because these people are really smart, and then some of them are like, dude, you're absolutely blind in this situation right now. So like, but I've had those conversations. I've had conversations with people who are like, you're absolutely wrong. Like, you know what I mean? To me. And it's literally, it's a fucking roller coaster of that type of shit with people. But at the end of each conversation, I make sure I'm not going to end it maliciously. Like realistically, if somebody doesn't believe what I'm saying or what I believe or whatever, I don't even want to hate on that person. I just don't want the energy. So I'll leave it at that. I'm like, look, man, it's like all love. If you don't want to believe this, then, I hope that whatever you're doing, whatever you're going to do with yourself and with your beliefs has a good impact on these issues. I hope so. But otherwise, like, I'm not interested in having an argument. I'm interested in having a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and is most of what you like, take like this morning, for example, are you mostly just like talking to people online currently, just like responding to people?
Yeah, most of it. I mean, like it would be completely different if, COVID wasn't a thing right now. Yeah. Cause I mean, I already had, I did some speaking last year. I actually did some speaking, at like it was a private event. The majority, literally, I think everybody except for one person other than myself was white in the room. And these are like powerful, like influential people. And like I spoke to them, I showed them like a preview of Bane, at the time. And like I had the room in tears because for like the first time for a lot of those people, except for my friend Carl, this was their first time hearing something like what I was saying, and like seeing how I chose to respond to it, because I could have come at this anyway, but I chose the artistic route. Right. And like, those are like lifelong friends now, those people. And that was what I was intending to do a lot more of this year. But obviously, things changed. So, I think that, a lot of people will say that, like, you're not going to change anything by making a post, you know what I mean? Like, or by writing it out in the caption. But I don't agree with that, because there are kids in like Germany who I've met this one kid I'm talking about in particular, like one time at NAPC. I changed this kid's life, just because he was open enough to respect somebody like myself that looks like me and listen and have conversations. It just changed a lot of how he moves in the world. And he's told me that himself, like going from thinking one way to thinking a completely different way, more sensitive to, the issues that plague us. A lot of that, I keep as much of that open as possible. It's difficult sometimes because the messages are just like, you go through and it's not like they're just simple responses. They're like paragraphs of responses.
Yeah, you kind of gotta like sit down and like engage for a bit and be like, okay, gotta like really give this my all.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome,
that's what it's been.
So I'm assuming you're probably going to try to do more of those like kinds of events, kinds of, talking, stuff like that after we can kind of get a little bit more free of the grasps of COVID. Yeah,
most definitely. That is my intention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, I have it like, I want to do it like from a community setting, obviously, like not just a parkour community. I obviously want to keep it as, I know that I can speak to the parkour community. Like that's pretty easy to do. But like what I really want to do is like around my area, and then also just, other places as it progresses. But I really want to talk to kids in schools, because like I have my little sisters who are, one of them's about to be in middle school. Actually, hold on now. I think she's actually about to go to high school. And the other one is she is in middle school right now. So like, little girls like them, I know what their priorities are right now, because they're my sisters, you know what I mean? So I have like kind of a finger on the pulse from that aspect. And then also like, the students that I teach are like, early teens to like mid-teens. And I think those kids are really important to talk to about things like this. And to share with them, like, I always want to share the art and like athletic aspect of parkour and like the content creation that we do, because it's really meaningful, even if it's not super meaningful to like everybody, it can be extremely meaningful and cathartic to you personally. And that's something I want to share, whether they take the medium of parkour or they just use it as an example to like, push their own passion. And like do that in a way that is like conscious, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I guess is the goal of what you're trying to do with those, is just kind of like using parkour as a like medium to like relate a lot of the like experiences you've had and how you'd like people to see the world and like view like societal issues and stuff like that. Yeah,
to an extent. I mean, like that is, I never want that to be lost. I do want, like, I also want to expose parkour like to more people as something more than just a hobby, because it is definitely a hobby, but it's also like I was doing film. I think I started doing film right after I started parkour, and parkour has made me so much more interested in film, obviously, over the past like 15 years. Like it's become something that is as much a passion of mine as the actual sport of parkour is. So it's just kind of like something I want to also express to people. Like there's avenues in this that, you might not see right now, but you'll see if you get into it. And the cool thing about getting into it is legitimately like free to start. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that is one thing that is just like very special about parkour. I had a very similar experience where like when I started parkour, is like immediately like picked up a camera and just like started filming things. And then those two things have been just like so intertwined in my life ever since. So like I feel like we have a very similar experience in that realm. Yeah. That's awesome, man. I think that age group is really good because it's like it's a very like pivotal time in those kids' life. It's like if they're much younger than that, then it's still kind of in that like so developmental phase to where like it'll probably get lost in a year or so. They're gonna be like, now I like this or like whatever. But like right around that middle school age is like really where they start developing like really who they are and their interests and like the things that are actually going to carry them through life and whatnot. So I think that's a really like important age to kind of target, to be like, hey, like here's something that is possible if you choose to do it. Because I feel like that's parkour often is seen as impossible because and I don't think it's any fault to anyone, but like people see parkour as a finished product and not a progress, you know, and they're like, oh, that's crazy, I can't do that. And it's like, well, if you just break it down for a while, like you can. And I think that's important to share to like to relate to like anything basically. It's like, you know, you see these things that need like these very big like movements to make it happen. Like, you know, as you were saying earlier, you were talking about people who are like, hey, like I don't understand this issue of like racial injustice, so I'm not going to be able to do anything. And it's like, well, if you break it down into steps, a process, and not just like this huge like chasm of like a leap from here to there, then it becomes much more of like a thing that you can really kind of break down and make like possible to people. And I think that's important to show, because I think there are a lot of people that just don't know what they should be doing.
Yeah, that's where I think that openness comes in. Like, you know, young boy in Germany who I was talking about, he's just a great example for me, because like he's potentially one of the most open people that I have, like, that I don't really know that well. I mean, like I know him pretty well now, but like that I don't know, you know, I don't know the ins and outs of his life right now. But
yeah, you don't have that face-to-face time.
Yeah, his change just came from being open, you know what I mean? And like on a closer note to me, somebody who you may have never met, or maybe you met him, but Sqvadron, like the like not original Sqvadron like cinematographer, but like he filmed 16 bars and swing theory and like all that stuff. Like, so Josh is I think Josh is 19 now. But when I met Josh, he was 15. And like he, you know, white kid from Berkeley, very privileged, well off. He was, I actually think the funny thing that opened him up to talking to me, is like hip hop. That's something that we both, you know, have a crazy passion for. He has a super crazy passion for it. He's got vinyls and everything. Like he goes in, he just wakes up and listens to like Ready to Die, like Biggie, like every day. He you know, obviously had a admiration for me because of like my status in the sport and what he sees me do. And obviously I'm from where he's from. So like that is another thing that connects us. He was always open to like not only listening, but also sharing his opinion. That's the really important thing, I think, because like from his standpoint, if he didn't share his opinion, I wouldn't know what he thinks. Like truly. And from like my standpoint, if I wasn't open to listening to his opinion, then again, I would never know anything really about how he feels or what he believes. And he would have no reason to want to tell me, because I'm not interested in listening. So like in the experience with him, he's become very, very outspoken about issues like this. Like he does not shy away from it or anything. Like he is out in the open and out front about these issues, because we've had years of conversation, and it literally just, hey man, this is what I think, this is what I believe. Like, you know, one of the first conversations that we had that was really, really big, I think pivotal to both him and to me understanding how to like speak to people like him, is when XXXTentacion got shot. You know, obviously he has a checkered past, but that kid was also only 20 years old. You know what I mean? Like, so, from his standpoint, you know, when X got shot, it was like well, I mean, you know, he wasn't a good person. So, I mean, he kind of had this coming, and I was like, dude, you shouldn't say stuff like that, because like, number one, there's way worse people in the world who are way older than him and have had a lot of time and a lot of like privilege to know that they're fucking up, that never get theirs. And he got his because of a situation that he had no control of before he was even alive. You know what I mean? So, I had some conversations with him about that and about how you should see people like that, because a lot of people just criminalize us. Like, if something happens to me tomorrow, like it's probably going to be, oh, well, he was trespassing. You know what I mean? Like some shit like that. And,
well, I mean, you've seen that narrative with George Floyd.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of people have been posting stuff like, oh, well, he wasn't a great person because like X, like whatever was on his record, like whatever he had been doing prior. And it's like, that doesn't give anyone the right to get killed. Like, even if you actually was in whole a bad person, which I don't believe he was, I don't think that I don't feel like anyone should just get killed because they're not a good person.
Yeah.
I mean, we like the far end of that is starting to get into like the death penalty and stuff like that.
Right.
That's really what I'm talking about.
Right.
I just don't think that any actions just justify just being murdered. Like,
especially nonviolent ones. Like, I mean, even violent actions. It's so dependent on what is actually happening. But I mean, especially nonviolent actions. And like in the case that I was speaking of, I mean, he was trying to shop for a motorcycle. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and it's just I mean, we just call it like hood economics. You know what I mean? It's just like, this is how it goes. You know what I mean? Like, these are the moves and the plays that you make. And I've been really close to situations like that myself. I don't share them with everybody, but I've been like, literally, if one thing didn't happen, I could have been in a car that got sprayed up. Yeah. And like, if one person didn't make one call, I could have been in a car and gotten sprayed up just because I was with people that are in that life. And I think that's like that's the understanding that I think people need to make. And that's like what I think like Josh is understanding of now, because of the conversations that we had. It's like, okay, well, maybe how I see the situation, like, firsthand isn't all that's there. I need to like, look more into it. And then beyond looking more into the situation and understanding like what leads, to these types of tragic events, I should also change my perception, because I think most people most people have to have a reason, like they have to like, oh, this happened for a reason. And it's like, And most of the time, the reason that people are looking for is, what did this person do wrong? And it shouldn't be like that. It should just be.
The reason is that we have a really fucked up system.
Exactly.
That doesn't work. It's like, there's a reason, but like when you isolate the incident, it feels like it was completely like reasonless. It just happened, but that's not true. It's just a lot deeper than he was bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's one of those other weird things too, because people will be like, well, what do you do? Like, we're already in this day and age. Like, how do you go back and change what was done systemically? People need to get over it, is what it's like, literally how people come at it. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is a bit of mental gymnastics where like, and I think there are people who actually believe exactly what you're saying. Mm-hmm. But I think there also is a subset of people who are just uncomfortable with the idea that like the place that we live and the systems that we've created and the thing that they're proud of isn't right.
Yeah.
And that knowledge that it might be fucked up and they might have been internally wrong the whole time is like a scary thing for them. And then they have to find a way to kind of like just explain it away. It's like, oh no, it wasn't. It's actually like this. Here's the reason why. It's very clear. Not like all of these things have been built up that I have pride behind, say, America, might be like really fucked up, because it is. So it's like, yeah. And I think people just have a hard time like coming to terms with that the thing that they like care about might not be, as glorious as they think. So I think it's easier just to be like, oh no, he was a bad person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I feel like people should like question like, what side of history do I want to be on? Because that's, to me, I mean, that isn't the reason why you should do the right thing, but it is, people understand that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I feel like doing that thought experiment should at least give you a little bit more clarity of like what's happening.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I think, to circle back a little bit, I think that as far as like, you're talking about like, speaking with youth and whatnot, I think what I really appreciate about your like stance is coming at things with a very like accepting attitude, and because you're not coming at it with a lot of anger, and you might like, I would, I bet that you are angry.
Yes.
And you can like, in this, all of these feelings are very valid, but then to express that in a much healthier, accepting way, to where you're like open to listening to people, because you could come at it with very loud, angry words, and it's just a lot harder to make people want to listen or care when people are angry. It's so much easier just to be like, that person's angry, I'm going to ignore them. I do not want to engage with this. But yeah, coming at it with a lot more empathy and kindness and compassion, I really admire that from you. And I think that's going to create a lot more good and a lot more positive conversations. So I think that's really awesome.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah.
I just think that I just think that in all aspects of everything, like having positive role models for people is really what makes things change.
Yeah. The thing about it is like, I am angry and I am exhausted too. Like I'm angry, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed. Like, dude, it's yesterday before going out, I was like, fuck, man. I want to go out and do this thing, but I'm just constantly reminded of all the things that like I have to think about, not just because like, some people will be like, why don't you just like unplug? Don't look at that. You know what I mean? It's like, well, how am I supposed to not look at what's happening to people? And how am I also supposed to not look at what could possibly happen to me? It's not something that I can just turn off from, Yeah. So like, I mean, it is exhausting, and it's exhausting to read these messages sometimes. And like, just, it's like, when you're teaching somebody a move and you understand the move completely and they just can't grasp it at all. Or they have an opinion on it, but they can't do anything with it yet.
Yeah. You're like, hey, change XYZ. And they're like, I don't know, man.
It's like, bro,
just do that one thing.
It's like, bro, I'm telling you, I know the answer already. Like, but yeah, it's like that, but like on serious shit, like on on stuff that like, hey, this pertains to my life, and they're like, no, it's like, all right, well, cool. Well, you're over there not knowing, I'm still over here in this real existence, So I mean, like, it is definitely it is angering, but like, I personally, I get a lot of that out in how I create things. You know what I mean? Like, I actually have a really hard time using my anger to fuel parkour, which is funny. Like, I have a very challenging time with that, but it becomes just a little bit easier when I have a concept, which is why like all of my videos have some level of concept, like conceptualization to them, because of like, I'm not just making, I can't personally like just make a video and just throw it out there. Like, it's hard for me to do that. It's a lot easier for me to feel like I'm speaking about something that I'm feeling with with the concept of it, like with the movement or with how it's presented and so on and so forth. And like that allows me to be more articulate and more like to the point when it comes to how I speak out about these issues. And I think, that's obviously, that is why people are more accepting. People are pretty accepting for the most part of it because of how it's presented, how it's packaged and given to them. And because I am a writer and I like to write things out, in a articulate way, it just really makes people feel like, oh, I just read something like profound, you know what I mean? And I think that is more inviting to them. But on the flip side of that, what I would encourage people not to do is, let's say somebody else, pick another athlete in the sport who's black. I don't know. Like, let's say, like Genji, let's say him, right? Let's say Genji comes out angrily. If somebody points to me and says like, well, maybe if you came at it like how Darryl comes at it, people would listen to you. And I actually have heard exactly that exact example, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've said to people like, look, I don't know if you know where Genji's from, but Genji's from Long Beach. And like Long Beach is somewhere where you're just going to walk past bullet holes in a car. You know what I mean? Like, Tim Champion experienced that himself. Like, and I was like, yeah, Long Beach is hard. And if you're talking to somebody who's from there, you're not talking to somebody who's like experiencing it and like seeing it. You're talking to somebody who like lives that shit, has lived that shit, has been in like the worst of it. And that person has a right to be angry about the situation that they're in. And, if you can be conscious enough to understand that, then you can help that person feel heard, and that will change their tone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's like everyone's gonna process that differently, and express it differently, and yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I feel you.
Just good to be open, especially like nowadays when we know like who needs to make this change right now. You know what I mean? Like, is it the listener or the speaker right now? And it's the listener who we need to make this change right now, because the listener hasn't been speaking. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we need everybody to be speaking up right now. So you gotta hear it from all of us in all different aspects, and just understand it is not because I want bad things to happen to you, or because I hate you, or because I want like revenge on you. No, I just I've been pissed off so long and been wronged so long. I just don't know what else to do other than scream and get this shit out of me. I need to get this out. And like right now, what I need from you is to just hear me, and tell me after you hear my tantrum, hey man, I'm gonna give you a hug and I'm gonna help you. Like, we're gonna get to where you want to go, together. That's what we need.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a great message. To kind of like wrap up a little bit, do you have any media or any people or any thing that you think is really worth listening to? Like, because I'm sure you have role models in your life. Do you think that are also speaking a great message? And I love to like just pass that on.
Yeah, I think like somebody like, I think Sean King is great. Sean King is like, just for anybody that doesn't know who Sean King is already, like Sean King is pretty hardcore in terms of like what you're going to see from him. So like, I'm assuming that you know who Sean King is already. Yeah. So like, if you're gonna see Sean King's like material, and you're gonna feel like overwhelmed immediately just because of how graphic what he shares
really
is. And the thing is like what I suggest people do is not just follow his Instagram, but listen to his podcast, because like the Breakdown podcast is probably one of the best examples of exactly what we just talked about, where somebody who has every single right to be like furious comes off as like educated, articulate, and like understandable, you know, like he's just empathetic. And I think that he turns that around like on other people, like makes them feel what he feels very well. So I think Sean King is a great one. Van Jones is phenomenal at that as well, because like even Van Jones is like the type of guy that can be pissed off and sound like he is just mildly upset with you. Like, you know what I mean? He's like, like, I'm absolutely furious, but he'll be like, I am absolutely furious with you right now. Like, that's how he sounds. He's a super educated dude. Very, very like boots on the ground type of guy too. Like he's a speaker with a large platform, and also has like a lot of like boots on the ground. He's the CEO of Reform, which is like the like Jay-Z and Meek Mill like focus kind of like on prison reform and stuff like that. He's a great person to listen to. I mean like there's, I mean, I don't know, there's a million different mediums that you can like look to. I say like, you know, like comedians are great, musicians are great. Like really, if people, perfect for parkour people love hip hop, love it, fucking love it. My I guess challenge for everybody is not to just hear the beats and like the raps, like just, you know, how they're put together, but like also like listen to what they're saying and like why. Like look into artist interviews as much as you like listen to their albums. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like you gotta look it up on Genius just to do it.
legit. Like go ahead, because there's things in those lyrics, there's things in what they say like outside of rap, you know, like just in interviews and stuff, and just how they move as people, that like you learn quite a lot about. Like I think J. Cole's a perfect example of somebody who you learn so much from in his music, but you'll learn even more from listening to him talk and seeing how he moves, you know, like what he does, where he puts his money, you know what I mean? And like how he approaches these issues. 'Cause he's not just I'm gonna go talk about it on record and leave it at that type of guy. Like he's going to talk about it on record, and then he's going to be out in the streets with the people, talking to the people, and like, you know,
which we've literally been seeing him do
exactly
the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not even new. Like
no,
he's been doing that. So it's like,
and,
I think,
and he's not posting it. It's not like, oh, hey, look at me out doing the protest. It's just like, people are like,
people
are
taking pictures.
J. Cole's here. What the fuck?
He didn't tell anybody he was going out. He just like, hey, I'm about to go to this protest over here, dog, like, you know. But yeah, I think that's really big, especially because like, you know, hip hop is Black culture, you know what I mean? And obviously it's culture that can be shared with everybody, you know, not only in the listening, but also in the performance of it, you know what I mean? And I think often, I say this often, I love like anime, right? I also am like very, very like cued into how people feel, you know what I mean? Like in like the Asian community, you know, like I am not for any like discrimination against them of any kind. Like when this whole fucking China virus thing was popping off, bro, I was like, what? No, like, no, that's not okay. I was very, very outspoken about that, like to people's faces. 'Cause it's like, you know, when it comes to my understanding of how much I've had influence from, like, martial arts movies have been huge for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Donnie Yen, Jackie Chan, like those are my fucking people, man. Like Bruce Lee, all that. That's my shit. Like, I'm never going to be okay with somebody discriminating against them. You know what I mean? In any way, shape, or form. I'm not okay with it. You know what I mean? Like comedy is a totally different medium because it's comedy, but like people, like regular people just talking and like saying some fucked up shit, I'm not okay with that. And like, I'll be outspoken about the issues that they're experiencing, you know, there. Because that's important culture to me, because it's had such an impact on me. So I would task anybody who is like extremely cued into Black culture, i.e. like hip hop music, you know what I mean? Like R&B, all that stuff. Like, you know, it's cool that you listen, but like, it's also cool that you recognize like that these people have an impact on your life, which means that protecting, you know, their right to life and happiness is something that you should consider as much your obligation as it is, you know, ours, because of how much you enjoy the culture. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. Well, sweet. Yeah, I think that's a great place to kind of leave it. Yeah. Thanks so much for, you know, hopping on, taking another hour of your time to yell.
Yeah, no, thank you for the invitation, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, thanks. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.